Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Brent Leary, and this is my first few good minutes of the week. I mean, I've had several other good minutes, but not on camera. Watching the Super Bowl is kind of fun. I really enjoy that, but I'm already on the next year. The Rams are, we're ready for next year already. We're not holding back nothing, but it was a good game. All right. Before I bring on my guests, I want to let everybody know that on Thursday, the CRM players are going to be joined by our old friend. Well, she's not an old friend, but we've known her for a while. The CMO of iSolve, Celia Flyshaker. We've known her for a number of years. This is the first time we're going to be talking to her as the CMO of iSolve, and we're definitely looking forward to that. So that's Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, usual time. And Stump the Godfather. It's coming back, and it's going to be bigger and better than ever. I don't care what Paul Greenberg says. We always have fun with that, and we're going to have fun with that and with Celia joining us Thursday. All right. So everybody is talking about AI, generative AI. It's been what we've been talking about for the last year, almost a year and a half or so. It's not, AI isn't new, but the generative AI spin on it definitely added to the conversation. And there's so many different flavors, so many different ways and looks, and companies are doing things, putting their own little spin on how they approach it. And one of the companies I'm always interested in what they do and how they do it and why they do it is SAP. And for me, this is a really interesting conversation coming up because joining me right now is Shardul Vikram. I want to make sure I get his title right. He's the CTO and head of data and AI at SAP Industries I&CX. That's a really big title, by the way. And he's from me. It looks like he went to Texas A&M. I was just down in Texas hanging out there. So let me bring on Shardul. Thank you, sir, for joining me. This is great.
Hello, thanks for having me, Brent. Great to be here
All right.
and
Now,
talk all exciting things about AI.
yeah, absolutely. AI, not A&M. Just want to make sure we got that. You're okay with that?
Oh, we can talk about both, but yes, let's start with AI.
Okay. So I wanted to start the conversation with this quote from the earnings call from the SAP CEO Christian Klein. Kind of set the stage. So he said, "Oh, there was a big announcement, of course, but recently SAP announced they're really restructuring, and there's a lot of restructuring around AI because of the big opportunity that you see and everybody else sees, really. But over the next 2 years, SAP will be investing €1 billion to develop powerful AI use cases. But the key phrase in there is for our customers. So I thought it would be interesting for if I could get you to maybe start the conversation, just high level overview of how SAP does view AI and generative AI, and maybe we can take it from there.
Absolutely. And I think like you mentioned in your preamble, so to speak, AI is not new, right? And enterprises, including SAP, have been investing heavily in AI over the past decade, maybe even longer. And at this point, we have over 20,000 customers who actually use our AI capabilities. But now with generative AI and the advent of foundational models, it actually does present an amazing reset opportunity. Right now, conversing with a system in natural language has become so much easier. And now we want to take it the next step further. How can we ensure that the systems themselves can converse with each other over, if not natural language, but in a seamless manner so that it automates some of the complex business processes that today take a lot of time and effort? And we primarily see this as a mechanism by which the way our customers interact with our products would change, the way our products integrate with our own products as well as third party products will change as well. And this presents such a great opportunity. And that's why we have already been investing quite a bit in AI, and we will actually double down on our investments over the next 2 years.
I want to send out a shout out to my buddy John Reed over at Diginomica because he recently put out this really great article where he had an opportunity to talk with your AI chief officer, Dr. Philip Herzig, kind of going over some of the things that we might touch on. And it was actually a great read. I would suggest everybody go out and check it out. But one of the things that came up was apparently uh, prompt engineering was a big factor in kind of how you view kind of how you view AI from an SAP standpoint. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of prompt engineering and why it plays such a kind of an integral role in the overall view of AI at SAP?
Yeah, absolutely. So prompt engineering is essentially a set of instructions that we pass over to an LLM or a foundational model for that matter to tell it what to do and what is the sort of output that we expect. So it's sort of not code, but you're trying to take an intention and a potential outcome and translate that into a natural language. And then you give it up to the LLM for it to figure out how to go about answering that. And the reason prompts, these instructions are so important because the way you tune a prompt, the way you frame it, actually governs the output that you get from the AI system. And so a big part of our AI investment is actually reskilling our data scientists to get more familiar with prompt engineering, as well as go into advanced techniques like, okay, how do you actually use prompt engineering with RAG, for example, or maybe even adaptive generation.
I'm going to get into the RAG stuff in a minute, but prompt engineering versus prompt tuning. Could you explain the differences in how they work together?
Right. Yeah. So prompt engineering and prompt tuning are essentially related, right? Like, so prompt tuning is how do you actually fine tune the instructions that you're passing over to a foundational model or LLM to get the output, um, which one, A, that you're looking for, but B, is widely applicable to the host of different use cases and scenarios or the customer landscapes, which actually differ. So a tuning part of it primarily refers to how do you make it generic enough, but at the same time, don't lose the essence of what you're trying to get out of it.
Now, you mentioned a term RAG, regenerative. I forget the A
Retrieval augmented
yeah,
generation.
retrieval augmented generation. Now that's part of the idea of trying to cut down on the hallucinations. You know, you if you kind of put together all the internal data that people that is within the enterprise, people forming these prompts to try to get answers to stuff that may also have great information outside of the enterprise. You want to kind of combine that, bring it together, and then come back with the best answer. A lot of times, because of the generative in the generative AI, sometimes it generates stuff that wasn't there, like the hallucination
Right.
stuff, right? And so there's this big need to not just bring back whatever these public LLMs come back with, but to bring it back and make sure it's not toxic or it's not making stuff up. So could you talk a little bit about how you guys approach the RAG part of this whole equation?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And so the way to think about it is the key capabilities of a foundational model or a LLM, right? Like whether be it our own or of a partner like Anthropic or Cohere or OpenAI that we use, is the ability to generate a text in natural language, which could be derived either from the data that it's trained on or the data that we provide as part of the prompt. And the reason it's so important for enterprises is because the scope of hallucination in enterprise software is non-existent. Right? And we have customers which rely on our software to earn their livelihood, to take care of their customers, to expand their businesses. And RAG is primarily a mechanism where we actually provide the data source as part of the instructions to the LLM to say, you know what, you're going to find an answer from the input that I am providing you. So 1A, to your point, it actually restricts hallucination because we are actually restricting the scope of data that the LLM has to pass through within the document or the set of documents that we are providing. Two, the answers are way more relevant, way more accurate, and we could be confident about the veracity of it, which is again very important in enterprise software.
And enterprise data. I mean, within the SAP applications, you guys cover a number of different kinds of business applications from front office to back office. That provides a lot of opportunity, a lot of data, and traditionally a lot of silos. And I'm not speaking about SAP in particular. I'm talking about generally business applications create silos and kind of this territorial marking of, you know, this phase or this particular department, they own this and they don't like to give this up. This one owns that and they don't like to give this up. But it feels like there's an opportunity to share this data in a way that hasn't been able to be done before using AI, generative AI. And how does SAP approach bringing all this enterprise data together and kind of unlocking the silos?
Absolutely. I mean, the phrase better data equals better AI has never been more important, right? Like it's even more important, especially in the case of generative AI, that we break those data silos and we try to get data in one singular place so that the insights and the outcomes that we generate are more relevant and B are more holistic, right? That they take like not just limited to sales or marketing per se, but you take service data into account as well. So the answers that you're giving out are more accurate. And the way we are thinking about it is, right, like, so we have been working towards creating a holistic data fabric over the past few years. And so you might have heard of SAP DataSphere or the SAP Data Fabric and the SAP Customer Data Platform. And all of these are solutions which help our customers to not just bring data from different SAP functions and departments together, but also you could bring other third-party data in. And then it goes through a set of processing steps where we anonymize it and we get it ready so that we can actually use it for AI. And we have seen fairly good progress with that, right? Like with the recently launched CX AI toolkit, we are bringing together productivity data, which is all the productivity tools that you use, like your email, your Teams meeting, your transcripts, your documents, everything that you have in your SharePoint, with CRM data that actually sits in Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, along with any other data that you might have in knowledge bases. And then all the insights that we generate are on top of this holistic data set.
When you think about the CX and all the things, everybody's kind of leading with, at least it feels like they're leading with CX. And it's traditionally, you know, CX from a customer service perspective, which is totally understandable because traditionally, when you think of, you know, new technologies being introduced into the enterprise, the focus is how do we use this new technology to be more efficient, to be more productive, you know, cut costs, which is understandable. Um, are we just getting to the heart of that phase of things with all these the new emphasis on AI and Gen AI?
I think so, right? Like, so this year will be the year of when you'll see AI and Gen AI specifically getting more and more permeated in enterprise software, in day-to-day workflows of folks, right? Like, so last year was pretty much the advent of foundational models and LLMs and the chat GPTs of the world. But the enterprise use cases, how we actually use it to enhance customer experience. How do you provide the best personalized offers on your e-commerce side? How do you ensure that your sales reps can build better relationships with their customers? How can the service agents address the core of the issue in as quick of a time? Like all of these will actually start happening in starting this year. And we have been at the forefront of it, like without plugging our solutions too much. We actually started on this journey 18 months ago, where we started building out a proactive and contextual intelligence product, which will give you the right insights at the right time so that you could act on it rather than be on the hunt to find the insights across the different systems and the data silos that you mentioned.
Awesome. We got a couple of questions. I'm holding off just for a second. But I see John Reed, the guy's article I was talking about. He's he's being John Reed. He's asking some good questions and adding his points of discussion as well. Um, we talked about that slide where Christian Klein, the CEO of SAP, talked about the billion in investment over the next couple of years in enterprise use cases. How does that? How do you see that working? Because seems like the over the first year and a half of this focus on Gen AI, the use cases have particularly, I think, from an 80-20 perspective, have come from the technology vendors kind of helping lead their customers into getting into this process. Do you see your investment as being mostly led internally, or what role do customers and partners play in these development of use cases, and kind of how you will distribute your investment around this?
Yeah. I mean, so customers and partners will play a huge role in our over the way our AI solutions come to market and get adopted across the different industries, right? To give you a specific example, right? Like, so retail is a priority focus industry of ours. And retail by itself includes different segments like fashion and wholesale and grocery. And the specific demands of those industries differ widely from each other, right? Like at some level, you could say, like everyone needs to have an omni-channel strategy. Everyone needs to have an order management system. Everyone needs to deal with their customers and ensure the right customer experience. But the goods that they are dealing with, the interactions with the backend systems, the notion of how the business overall works, how much of it is digital versus how much of it is physical, varies widely. And the AI solutions that we are building, they have to be fine-tuned and tuned to those specific use cases, right? Because we can only build a generic enough solution that will, let's say, solve for like 80% of the use cases. But then that specific adaptation and customization needs to happen so that it cater to the needs, unique needs of each customer. So customers and partners both play a huge role. And we have been blessed to have like amazing partners as well as customers who are willing to go on this journey with us.
Mm. I'm going to bring up Anand Thakur, my buddy Anand, who's do you know he's called the Midas of Martech? You should know. Make sure you know that Anand is the Midas of Martech, because he's also a good friend of mine. But
All
he is
right.
big into Martech, and his question is, or he's interested in understanding how SAP sees customer organizations work with Gen AI to become decentralized, or as he said, AI becomes centralized and decentralized / democratized. How do organizations, how are you helping them kind of see where AI fits into their strategic planning and thinking?
Right. I think it starts off with data, right? So the very first conversation in any AI conversation that I have with a customer, and the very first conversation is, okay, let's figure out what does your data landscape look like? And for the problems that you're trying to solve, like what pieces of data do we need to bring together in order to solve that problem in an optimal way? And it involves a fair amount of decentralization in a way, because the source of records for this data lives in different places, sometimes in different departments, sometimes in across different environments, maybe with a third party. So bringing that data in allows us to then use our own in-house AI proprietary models as well as models from our partners to actually build our solutions and generate insights which will be more relevant. So it's sort of a hybrid approach where like some part of it is like we want to maintain the data gravity within SAP, which allows us to create better AI, but it doesn't mean that like we would own all of it, all of the data, right? Like the silos for the most part, right? Like they are getting what should I say, less concrete, and the silos are breaking, but the center of gravity would still remain.
I'm thinking we've heard a lot about LLMs over the last year and a half or so, the large language models, and then as the year progressed, you started hearing about medium language models. And then
Right.
recently at a conference last week, I started hearing about small language models and narrow language models. Where do you see, how do you look at the different levels of language models and which one is the best one to use for a particular use case?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. My personal opinion is that we will see uh, a rise in adoption of the tiny or small language models in enterprises, because the very large language models which have been trained on all of internet's or most of internet's data, right? Like we talked about earlier, it's not really that relevant for enterprise use cases, right? Like in our use cases, folks are not looking to like get an insight over something that happened that might be the property of the internet. What they're looking for is, how can I get better insights on my business processes, on my business, on my customers, which means the data set that we are looking at is contained within that customer's landscape. And so if we can have the small language models maintain the same amount of summary generation capabilities and retrieval capabilities, I believe we'll see a rise in the adoption of small language model within enterprises. Because for the most part, the large language models would be an overkill.
Do you do you see using AI itself to help optimize which language models to work with for a particular use case? Like, is it, oh, we just go for this use case, we just go to this language model? Or is it for this use case, we go to this one and then that one kicks off this one and then they all work together and then they bring back some? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely on the right track. So we have been playing around, and I say playing around loosely. So we have been working really hard to benchmark and compare all the open source as well as the partner LLM models that are out there, and at the same time, like fine tuning some of the open source models to see which best fits our use case. So the sort of promise that we are making to our customers is, right, like trust is number one. We need to ensure that no PII and personal data passes over to any of the LLMs, including our own. Two, we will pick the best technology, so to speak, or the best model to suit the outcome of a particular use case. And we sort of want to retain the right on which LLM model we end up picking,
Mm.
because that gives us flexibility to pick the right model at the right time and to your point, attune it to different use cases.
What is a successful year for your customers using the things you're putting together? What does that a successful 2024 look like in the eyes of your customers as you roll these things out?
Right. So for CX specifically, right? Like so we are launching, like I mentioned earlier, with the CX AI toolkit, Gen AI capabilities in commerce, sales, and so for service teams, with capabilities for marketing teams coming out soon. So that should really please Anand. And success for us primarily looks like, for each one of those capabilities, we have certain targets in mind. So for the commerce capabilities, we believe it could increase conversion rates, which is essentially number of items you add to the cart to number of items you actually check out. For service, it's all about how quickly can you resolve a case and translate and solve the customer issue so that it results in a happy customer. We have targets for each one of those, and we are shooting for like 10 to 30% improvement across all of those metrics.
What are your customers asking you specifically? How do they want you to help them?
Lots of things. As Gen AI and AI overall is top of mind for everyone, right? Like so we are not unique in that. Like our customers are thinking about the same. How can they use AI to make their businesses better, to cut down costs and increase efficiencies, and make their customer experiences much more personalized and happier? And the questions are pretty much around the same vein, right? Like, how can we help them reduce support costs? How can we help their sales rep close more deals? How can we increase product discovery and order conversions? And they're looking for how can SAP come up with solutions and capabilities that will augment their existing business strategies and processes to help them. Because the augment part is really important, right? Like folks are rarely looking for a rip and replace.
Right. I'm gonna go to this comments, kind of comments question from John Reed. I didn't tell you this, Shardul, but John Reed, we call him the Bro Hammer on this
Oh,
network. You know, he knows why. But I wanted this is an interesting one because this kind of leads into a question I had. He says, Shardul, one strength of SAP's approach, as he sees it, is to take pressure off of customers to build their own data science teams. So maybe you could talk about what kinds of things beyond the platform do you think SAP, and other enterprises, vendors, but SAP specifically, what kind of guidance or what kind of uh, assistance do you want to give, or do you think you should give when it comes to this? Because you know, you guys, the tech vendors are leading these folks into being able to really get the fullest out of it. But sometimes they need to they might not have the right resources or the right skill sets, or maybe not enough of those skill sets. So beyond the platform, something like the data science teams, what do you think you are best suited to take responsibility for versus them trying to do it on their own?
yeah, that's a really great question. One of the misnomers, like folks who have not been in this field, they tend to think that a lot of the Gen AI use cases is as simple as calling an OpenAI endpoint or an API endpoint, and you know what? I can pretty much get the same things done. And the reality is, for a lot of the simpler use case, that's true. But where SAP comes in is one, we add a layer of trust and privacy shield in front of all LLM interactions so that your data is safe, right? Like there's no risk of your data leaking into any other system inadvertently. The second part of it is, and it goes on to the topic of RAG, right? A lot of the enterprise use cases are primarily about give me an answer in the context of my customer base, in the context of how I run my business, which means all of that context needs to be accumulated. It needs to be put into a semantic store, right? Like this is where embeddings come into the picture, right? Like where you have a vector representation of any particular object and you put it into a database. So all interactions with LLMs actually go via a database so that you can ground all the outputs in the business context. And the third is scaling it out, right? Like because I just talked about two of the pieces, which is like adding a trust and privacy shield layer, introducing vector databases for a semantic layer. But there are additional things like caching. Like, do you really want to make the same call to an OpenAI endpoint, which charges you per call multiple times, right? Like that's where the notion of caching comes in. And then there's a notion of like who is able to access what, right? Like you probably don't want everyone in the organization to have the same amount of access to view the same kind of data, to view the same kind of insights. So a lot of what we bring to the table are hardcore enterprise constructs built over like 50 years of serving the enterprise customer base and the trust that we have gained from our customers and how we bring that into the Gen AI world.
Mm. What are your customers still not getting about this stuff, or they're getting it wrong?
I won't say anyone is getting it wrong at this point,
Okay.
but everyone is optimistic, right? Like, so everyone is like, you know what, like, here's this new amazing technology. Everyone is saying that it can change my business and it can bring so many amazing benefits. Um, but the path to actually get there requires solving some of the hard problems that have pre-existed, right? Like that existed for a while. We already talked about data silos. We talked about the gravity of maintaining data. Issues like trust and privacy are becoming more and more front and center. There is also increasing regulation around AI, right? Like the local regulations, the EU specific guidance is being rolled out, and we'll see more and more of that, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, you want your AI engine or your enterprise AI engine to be aware of all that and be able to adhere to it. while doing the things that it wants to do.
Hmm.
And then some of it is a conversation, right? Like, so some people are like, that makes absolute sense. I trust SAP. We have been integral partners for so many years. Let's go ahead and do that. And others want to see more, right? Like they want to see success stories. They want to see how we have helped other businesses transform, which is good, right? Like it's a conversation.
Right. I like that. I like that as a conversation. Um, we keep on harping a bit on the enterprise use cases, the investment around that. We know new technology usually focuses on productivity and efficiency and cost reduction. So I know there's the big emphasis over this next year or so is definitely going to be on that. But do you see getting beyond that and having maybe a certain percentage of the use cases that are kind of built over the next year and a half or so will be not of the pure productivity, efficiency, cost reduction, but actually looking at how we can do things that we've never done before, how we could apply customer experience in a way that just wasn't able to be done before. When do we get to that? Do we get to any of that this year with those use cases? Because I mean, it's incredibly important for the efficiency and productivity. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But the fun is how do we leverage this technology to do things in ways that we've never been able to do before, but have the impact that we would love to always have had. When do we get to that kind of stuff? That's kind of the fun stuff for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same for me as well, right? Like, and how do we, or when do we get to using this amazing technology, using these amazing advances to solve the really hard problems, to solve the really complex business processes? And I would say that like some of it we are already doing, right? Like, so, like, and I'll give you a specific example, right? One of the recent features that we launched as part of CXAI Toolkit for Commerce is we automatically analyze and extract product attributes from product images and text descriptions. And those attributes then go into the product catalog, they go into the search index. It helps with customers discovering the product that they are really looking for. And all of this process was entirely manual, right? So there's nothing overly, what should I say? The right word is starry about this. Like, we are talking about a very hardcore technical problem, which is how do I get attributes out and put it into the search index so that when someone goes in and searches for a black sweatshirt, which is made of this material, gets the right result. And we are actually solving that using AI. Similarly, in the case of knowledge management, like I mentioned earlier, we are bringing together data from your productivity apps, your CRM data, your conversations, your knowledge bases, all into one place so that we don't just give you the right answer when you're looking for it. We go a step further. We automatically also detect questions and see, you know what, maybe you're trying to look for this information, and we give you a proactive insight to say, this is how you can find this information or what you're looking for. So we are getting there, and it will get more and more permeated over the course of coming months.
uh, Shardul, this has been a great conversation. I could talk about this for a while, but I don't want to take too much of your time up. But I'm appreciative of you joining me today. And as you can see, there are lots of great comments and questions that have come in. But Shardul, where should we think I asked you about the next year, but what does things look like maybe 2 to 5 years out with some of the things that you're doing? What should we expect, or what should SAP customers expect from the investments over the next couple of years? How will they build into the next 2 to 5 years?
Right. We should see an advent of AI agents, right? So using AI not just for the purposes of giving you information or recommending you something, but now also acting on it, right? Like being an agency of change. And which would mean, imagine if you are a service rep right? Like you would have you can configure an AI agent which keeps track of all the high priority cases, also looks into the CRM to see if there are any upcoming deals which pertain to that particular account, automatically reaches out to the sales rep or the account executive, lets them know that, hey, something is going on that you should be aware of. And all of these complex integrations across different systems could be done by an AI agent. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. How could we give time back to humans to do what they do best, which is human to human interactions, and we take care of all the time consuming itsy bitsy bits and have AI take care of that.
Hey, I'm all for that. That would
I
be
am.
great.
So am I.
I'm gonna have to let you get back to work on that because I really taking advantage of it. This has been a real pleasure, Shardul, talking with you and learning more about SAP and how they're approaching certain things. Um, where can people go to learn more about some of the things that we discussed?
Thank you, Brent. First of all, it has been an absolute conversation. Love the questions, love the engagement from the chat. And you could head on to sap.com. If you go to Google or Bing, or I would argue even say ChatGPT at this point, and ask for SAP AI and SAP Generative AI, you can go to our AI homepage, which lists out our strategy, a list of our solutions, and how we are approaching this. For CX specifically, you could actually search for CX, SAP CX AI Toolkit, and it will direct you to the brand new product page that was launched a week ago.
Oh, nice, nice. Let me send a shout out to the Brohammer, John Reed. Lots of great comments from him. Lots of great comments from the Midas of Martech on and talker. You know what, Shardul? Everybody that comes on my show, I just end up giving them a nickname. I got to work on yours. The next time we talk, I will give you a nickname. But this has been a really great show, an opportunity to learn more about SAP and the strategy that you guys are putting together around AI and generative AI. So thanks for that. But I do have one last question for you. I kind of I kind of gave you a little hint when we talked a couple of weeks ago. But everybody that comes on the show, regardless of how great a conversation it has been with them, this next question I ask, and I ask them everybody that comes on, if they answer it the wrong way, I'm never going to talk to them again. So not to put any pressure or anything on you, but do you have a favorite NFL team?
Yes, I absolutely do. And I also do want to hear what my nickname is. So I definitely want to come back next time. So I'm not going to miss out on that. All right. So in the spirit of coming back next time, my favorite team is the Rams.
All right, that's cheating, but it's okay because you know what? There's only one wrong answer. You could have said anything but one thing, and since you didn't say that you're a Patriots fan, you are more than welcome back.
Is it really flattery though, if it's done on purpose?
Not really.
And so blatantly.
But I didn't get the hint that you were a Patriots fan, so I'm just gonna stay with not getting that hint and move forward. But
absolutely, no way.
This has been great, and we will definitely do this again because I'm really interested in how SAP progresses off of some of the things that we've talked about and discussed over the last 34 minutes or so. So thanks to you, thanks to everybody out there. Hey, Ralph, good to see you, man. And I will talk with you on Thursday as part of CRM Players when we bring on the CMO of iSolved, Celia Flyshaker. She's just a friend of ours for a long time. So we like her. And I will see you guys Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.